All right, what's happening? Ward Wrestling Live. We're here again with another amazing wrestler mind, wrestler coach, just an all-around badass. She's the founder of How She Wrestles. She's the King U assistant coach. She's employed by Wrestle Like a Girl. She's Team USA's #3 ranked wrestler right now. She's the US Open champ, the Pan Am gold medalist, and she's here with us. It's Julia Salata. What's happening, Julia? Thank you so much. It's an absolute honor. I appreciate you. I know you're a busy girl.
I'm happy to be here. Anytime I can talk about wrestling, I'm here for it. So I appreciate you having me on.
Awesome. Dope. Before we get into the questions, the elephant in the room, how has this pandemic kind of affected your life right now, your kids, as far as your wrestlers, your coaching, plus your training? How has that been affected through this process?
It's definitely been a multifaceted thing. From a coaching aspect, it's presented a lot of challenges. Our girls, they got sent home from campus in mid-March, and I haven't seen them since. But we've been keeping tabs on them on Zoom. We have weekly Zoom calls with them. We were doing workout challenges on the Peloton app and stuff, so making sure they're still getting their workouts in. We kept telling them the whole time, we're going to wrestle again. We're going to wrestle again. You're going to have to make weight again. We're going to compete again. So just kind of keep their mind right as much as we can. They'll be coming back to campus in a little over 2 weeks now. So it'll be good to see them. I'm sure they'll get my nerves pretty quickly after that, but I do love them. They're good kids. They're wild. That's for sure. And then from Wrestling a Girl standpoint, it's actually been a time of a lot of productivity. I think when a lot of people, with this pandemic, a lot of people kind of put things on pause, and we actually got to tackle some more projects that maybe were on the back burner before. We used this time to the best of our advantage. That, for me, having to coach and try to do this Wrestling a Girl stuff, I wasn't really doing a whole lot of coaching stuff because no one was on campus. So I could really focus on just those Wrestling a Girl projects, the state sanctioning stuff, the NCAA emerging sports status stuff. So we've actually been getting a lot done and more during the past 4 months than we did in the 4 months before that. So that's been a good thing. And then with training, just doing what I can. I was fortunate that I still had access to a wrestling room and could train a lot more than most, actually. I kind of made a rogue little fitness center and stuff with everything I needed. So, it's been a change. I don't have a team full of girls to work out with, but I still have my couple of partners that I could train with, not with the same volume that I was before, but still was able to get on the mat. So again, took the best of my time. I actually probably needed a little bit of time off just to kind of rest and recover after what I thought was going to be the Olympic year and kind of gearing up for Olympic trials. So I think I made the best of the situation. And I guess time will tell, but it's been, I think I definitely had a better time with quarantine life than most. So can't complain about that.
Yeah. And for you guys that were, you guys and girls that were on that Olympic track and really, I'm sure you didn't ramp up the last 6 months. I'm sure it's been a plan over the last 4 years on what you were doing. Mm-hmm. What, obviously there was disappointment. You wanted to go to the Olympics, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what was how did you have to kind of regroup? I guess what I would be saying, cause you were probably okay, I'm going to go have a steak first and a big dinner cause I can eat right now. And then
So I actually bartended at a brewery part-time. And when I saw the article that the Olympic trials are postponed, I had a friend come in and she was going to come grab a drink that night and just hang out with me and stuff while I was working. I'm like, yo, can you also bring me a pizza? And she's like, what? I'm like, yeah. I'm like, you're bringing a pizza. I'm going to clock out. I'm going to have my shift here. We're going to eat pizza. She's like, you have Olympic trials in 2 weeks. I'm like, no, I don't. Not anymore. And so the answer was pizza and beer.
Yes, I love it.
But I think the hardest part for me was that I was planning on retiring after this year, whether it was after Olympic trials or after the Olympics, I was going to be done. I'm 27, which in wrestling years is pretty old. Wrestling years are like dog years on your body. I kind of started on this professional track where I have some post-competitive career direction, still within wrestling, but something to do beyond my athletic career. And I was just kind of ready to be done. The primary reason being, though, above all, was that I'm just beat up. I need surgery on both my shoulders. My back's messed up. I need surgery on both my feet. I'm jacked up. I kind of ramped up with this last year, like you were saying, of this is my last go at it. If I screw up my body, I screw up my body. So what? I'm going to be done soon. I knew that I could make it through a couple of months just to make that last final push. And now I'm at this point where I'm like, oh crap, I don't know if I can continue to train the way I have been for the last year and still be competitive. So after they got postponed, I made the decision that I was going to still go for 2021. At this point, you said this wasn't like a year ago I decided to make this push for 2020. It was a 4-year decision. When I decided to go a whole other cycle, I was like, I'm committing to this for 4 years. So I owe it to myself to see it through, but I hurt, you know what I mean? I have injuries. I have things that prevent me from training twice a day, every day, like I used to. So it's going to be an adjustment, my training, mostly in terms of volume. But I'm still gonna do everything in my power to make sure that I'm in the best position come April of next year to make that team. I kind of have to put some of my professional things on hold, I guess, but what's another year? I've already put 4 years into this. What's one more year? So like I said, I'm kind of resting a little bit right now, just training, a couple days a week, but probably in September, I'll kick it right back into gear and make that last push again.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, that answers half of my next question, but what has it meant for you to wear the red, white, and blue? It's
been such an awesome experience. And I think every young athlete, when they're a kid, like their ultimate goal is like to be an Olympian or be a professional athlete. And like, that's what every kid says. Whenever you talk to a young athlete, like, what do you want to do? Like, I want to be an Olympic gold medalist. And like, for so many people, that's, when you're a kid, you can, your dreams are endless. I mean, they have no bounds. And then as you get older, you start thinking like, oh, well, you kind of like start learning your place in the sport, as bad as that sounds. Like, not every person is Division I national champion. I mean, it's just, there's such a small percentage of people that can actually compete at that elite level. And I was that kid who was like, I can be an Olympian. I can do all this stuff. I can be on Team USA. And, what sport was going to be and kind of changed. First, I thought it was going to be hockey. Then I thought it was going to be softball. And then around my junior year of high school, I was like, no, I'm going to be on Team USA for wrestling. And then to actually see that come to fruition is pretty awesome. To be in such a small percentage of people that really makes it to that next level and is successful. And then it's just, to represent your country at any tournament is awesome. I mean, to win an international tournament and hear the national anthem played, I mean, you can't beat that. There are a lot of people who do a lot of great things for our country. I'm thankful for servicemen and women and all that. But in some regards, you're still representing your country on the biggest stage when you're an athlete for the U.S. national team. And I'm really proud to wear the stars and stripes. And anytime I get to put the USA on my back and go out there and compete, it's really a proud moment for me, for sure.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think it's funny. I know you talk about like kids' dreams having boundaries. I know my 11-year-old right now, his goal, he's going to have a farm with 10 cows and 2 chickens and he's going to have a house in 3 states. And I'm rooting for him. But I think it'll come in a little bit when he gets.
When I was 6 years old and people asked me what I wanted to be when I grew up, I used to say that I wanted to be a pig. So I think I've exceeded my own expectations from 6 years.
Yes, you did well. You did way beyond that. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, well, it'll be great to see you on the Olympic level. Obviously I just got to meet you and now I can root for you. Well, I was rooting for you before, but I can root for you more now. So, and maybe part of this is your drive to slow down. You've been coaching now at King University and talking to you prior to the show, it seems like that's a passion of yours. You really love it. You also wrestled for King University. What has the difference been between experiencing college and then kind of being on the observation side and getting to coach these kids now?
It's definitely 2 very, very different perspectives. That's for sure. When you're an athlete, you think you have all the answers and that you know what's right. And, and especially too, because now my head coach, like my boss, is the coach I wrestled for in high school. So, at first it was like, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. He's crazy. Like, I don't yeah, I won 2 national titles, but like, he didn't do anything. Like, that's not, exactly it. But it was always like, I knew better. Like, I always thought that I knew better. And then it's different because when you're a coach, you realize that even as the coach, like, you don't have all the answers, but that's okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like, as a coach, there's times where I have to like ask my head coach, like, hey, like, she just asked me this question. I think I know. And you actually start second guessing yourself when you're the one who actually has more, like, I don't know how to describe it.
Like you did it.
When you're a college athlete, you think you have all the answers and you don't. When you're a college coach, you probably do have the majority of the answers, but you think you don't. So it's a very big kind of shift in mentality there. But as a result of that, I think it's actually helped me a lot as an athlete. Like when I do one-on-ones with girls and we're spending 30 minutes on one technique, and it might be something that I think I'm pretty good at, even in my own wrestling. And then I'll like notice I'm doing something because I'm actually watching this technique happen. And then I'll like try, I'll be like, no, do it like this. And it'll occur to me that like, wait, I'm actually making a mistake in my own technique. And I can kind of fine tune and make those adjustments because I'm actually watching someone do it. It's not just myself trying to like fix my own technique. I can actually have a visual and be able to make some adjustments. But I think it's also kind of helped my work ethic a little bit. When I was an athlete, I worked hard, but it was always kind of like, as one of the better girls in the room, I was like, oh, I can get away with kind of slacking in this live go because I'm still going to win. As a coach, it's like I constantly have to prove myself. Like if I jump in with the girls for live, it's like it has to be game on because God forbid one of them think that I have any kind of weakness. Like I won't let them touch my legs. I won't let them score a point just because we're play wrestling. Like there is like no room for error. So it's like balls to the wall all the time. So again, it's forced me to elevate myself and like be the example in the room. If we're doing like we're going on a run and I go run with them, I have to lead the pack.
Nature.
Yeah. Whereas when I was on the team, I was kind of like, I'm finishing the run. It's fine. Now it's like, no, I have to be the best because if I'm not, they're not going to respect me, which I don't think is the case. I have a really good relationship with my athletes.
But it's in your mind.
That's the thought in the back of my mind is like, I have to be the best at everything that I do because this is their standard. You know what I mean? How are they going to buy into what I'm saying as a coach if this girl just, this 101 pounder just ran a 100-yard sprint faster than I did, even though I wrestled 136, you know what I mean? So, but I think to a different perspective, again, like even off the mat in college, I was like, I thought I could do what I want. I could stay up late and, go to bed or wake up early and go to practice. And now like as a coach, I'm like trying to preach them like, no, go to bed at 10, finish your schoolwork, like sitting up in the dorms and talking until 2 a.m. Those girls are still going to be there the next day, eat breakfast together. And like, I think they're like, we're fine. I got it. I'm like, no, trust me. I know what I'm talking about. I lived
you've experienced it. Yeah.
That's cool. I've lived it. Trust me. And sometimes I'm just like screaming into the void. I'm like, do what you want. Like they could be partying and they're not. They're just staying up all night, like doing whatever.
Yeah, that's the one thing. I had Darian Cruz on, Darian Toy Cruz. Mm-hmm. And I asked him the same question because he's been helping over at Lehigh a little bit while he trains. And he said, I don't know, the time I realized, hey, I think I can do this was we had somebody wrestling and he came off and I like stuck my head into the coaching circle, probably where it didn't belong, but he's like, I don't care. I'm in the corner. And I'm like, yo, if you do this and do this, he's going to this side. You got to get this. And the guy looked at him and was like, I got you. I heard you. And he's like right there. It was like this super cool coaching moment where he recognized me. He listened to me. He went out and did it and got the 2 points. And it was like, yeah, hey, that was pretty cool to see somebody do what I just told them to do.
And I have one wrestler in particular, Schultz, who like, wants to learn everything. Like if you you think a lot of wrestlers, you throw a lot of technique at them, and then they'll pick like one or two things that they think are going to work for them, which is fine. But Schultz is the kind of person that like she wants to like master everything you show her. So I'll show her a ton of stuff and just kind of it's like throwing everything at the wall and seeing what sticks. And she'll often like go out there and like try something that we worked on like that day. Like we went to like a one-on-one, like a quick like little technique session, like with her and a partner and me, like at 2:00, we'll have a duel at 7:00 that day. And she'll go out in a duel and do something I showed her 5 hours earlier. And like, again, that's a coaching moment where I'm like, look at that. Or she'll do it in practice that day after I showed her. And then she'll text me after. She'll be like, hey, that thing you showed me actually worked. That's crazy. I'm like, no.
Imagine
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
She always ignites. We have quite a few girls that are like that. Well, they'll go out and try stuff, but she always has this like light bulb moment of acknowledging like, hey, that actually worked. I'm like, crazy, right? Like I remember like one of the things I told her this year was like, stop looking at your opponent's feet and like watch your hips. Like when you're wrestling, like don't stare at the ground. Watch your hips. You can see how she moves. And she did it the whole practice. And she's like, dude, like my shots were so much better. I closed the gap. My hips were. And I'm like, yeah. No, that's why I want you to do it.
I know. I was a salesman.
Like an athlete, your immediate thought is always like skepticism, and maybe not across the board. Like not that you don't trust your coaches, but you always want to like know what works before you actually try it. Whereas a coach is like, no, just give it a shot. Like we're in practice. Like see what happens. Like it, awesome. If you don't, that's fine. But like we're not showing you things for no reason. Just do it.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, I was a sales manager in the car business for a long time. And I remember, you're a salesperson, then you move up, right? And I remember you would tell like a salesperson something, say this and say this. They were like, that's stupid. That's not going to work. I'm like, just say it. And then when it works, they're like, that stupid thing really worked. I'm like, well, yeah, I don't want you to fail. Like I only get paid if you sell a car. Like I want you to win this like you. not that you don't get paid, but we want to win. I'm not going to give you something to go out there to lose, right? That's
Right.
pretty cool. Well,
But kind of like selling kids on things. Like it's kind of like how they said I bartend part-time. It's like when I want to sell someone a beer, they're like, oh, let me get, whatever. Let me get an IPA. I'm like, all right, do you want a 23 or a 16 ounce? And like, we have a 12-ounce option, but I don't tell them that. And I also say, do you want a 23 first? Because I want them to buy the more expensive one. Like, so it's like people almost kind of want to be like told what they want. And they're like, oh, I want a 23. That's the best deal. I'm like, yeah. So it's like when you're telling an athlete, like, hey, like, we're going to go out there. I'm like, do you want a tech fall or pin this girl? And they're like, well, I want to tech her. I'm like, okay, cool. I'm like, the thought of like having a decision isn't even in their mind. I'm like, do you want tech or do you want to pin her? Which one? And like, just see what they do if they go out there. And more often than not, it actually works. Like,
that's
I'm not
awesome.
telling you these things for no reason. It's like,
Well, when you get, I don't know if you see, I usually have this hat on that says St. Pete Brewing Company.
Love it.
My sister and brother-in-law are partners in it, and my brother-in-law is the brewer, so it's been open like 6 years. So when you get down to Florida, we'll have to go out there and you can try. He's got a Milo's IPA that's really good, and
awesome
stout I love, and he does some cool stuff. He's doing some other things, some wood barrel stuff now, so it's pretty fun. I saw your
that's my thing.
Yeah, I saw in your bio, you're like, love craft beer. Cool.
Well, not always conducive to weight management, but I appreciate craft beer. So
I love it. Well, let's get into what you really are fighting for right now. I know you started this this movement, hashtag How She Wrestles, created different pages and social media accounts, and you've got the girls doing all these videos and stuff. First of all, I mean, we saw what happened with the wrestler calling out women and doing the stupid things that was going on there. Whether it was for attention or not, who knows? But you've got a really good movement going. Talk about the movement. Talk about why you started it, what your goals are with it, and the floor is yours.
So without rehashing everything that's happened over the past month or so, basically there was this larger issue where our largest media wrestling outlets weren't covering women's wrestling. They weren't giving fair opportunity to compete on, cards. We weren't getting fair pay. And the root of the issue to me overall was that we weren't getting the coverage we deserve, which leads into like, if you're not going to pay us fairly and you're saying it's because we don't bring in the views, it's like, that falls on you. Like, you're not promoting us, you're not covering us. So how could people be interested in watching us if they don't know us as athletes? So I put a tweet out there that was just kind of like, it wasn't trolling, it wasn't aggressive. It was just kind of like, I kind of opened the floor to everyone on Twitter. I was like, if you don't watch women's wrestling, is it because you genuinely think we're boring? Or is it because you don't know the athletes and as a result, you don't have an investment in them? And like 95% of the people that responded were like, I don't know the athletes. I'm an Iowa fan, so I watch Iowa guys at the senior level. I have never followed women's college wrestling because it's not out there, or I don't know these athletes' personalities. But the overarching theme was that they don't know the athletes. So my whole thing is like, if you're talking to Flow Wrestling or whoever it may be, like, you can create value for the women athletes. You have the platform to do it. If you're at the US Open, there's no extra cost to you to cover the women. You're already there. The men and the women are competing on the exact same match, side by side. All you have to do is turn your camera. Like, it's not hard, and they're not doing it. So there is a long-term, benefit to them, but they're choosing not to. So I was like, how can we fix this? Like, what can we do? Like, now we know the issue, and I'm like, how about we just take it upon ourselves? So I kind of had this idea of, my original hashtag was going to be like, tell our stories. And it wasn't like, that was kind of like my idea, but because that's like the concept of it is like, we need to get our stories out there. So I kind of texted a couple girls who I'd already been talking to throughout this whole thing and was like, what do you think if we create our own platform and we literally just tell our stories and get them out there and just see what the response is? Not like best case scenario, every single person in the wrestling community watches these and we get some traction and we start getting featured more. Worst case scenario, we have some cool media out there. If we ever need to like reference it for some reason, cool. So I kind of got this group together, and even though this was my idea, this project has been a complete group effort from day one. Everything from the format of it to doing the weekly topics has been all group collaboration. I've just kind of been leading the charge, I guess, and kind of keeping everything organized. So we kind of did this, like, like when Beyonce released, well, you might not know, but when Beyonce released her Lemonade album, she kind of teasered it with tweeting a lemon emoji like a week prior. So we're like, we're going to have our Beyonce Lemon, and we're going to just drop this graphic of how she wrestles. Victoria Francis came up with this like sick graphic, and right away we had everyone's interest. I was like, we're all going to drop it 4 p.m. Eastern. It's going to flood everyone's feed for a solid 20 minutes, and then we're going to get people's interest. And it worked perfectly. Within like 2 hours, we had like 600 Instagram followers, like 700 Twitter followers. We're like, cool, we have them drawn in. I really hope this works. If it's a dud, like we're going to look stupid. So for that first week, we're like, let's just all talk about something that applies to us. Like whatever we feel like we wrestle with on the mat, off the mat, whatever, we're going to make a video. And we're going to drop them again all at the same time, starting at 3 p.m. on Sunday. And we started posting them. We post on our own social media, and then I would follow up by posting that video on the How She Wrestles social media. And we got instant traction again. People saying like, this is so, this is so cool. Like I love so-and-so, but now I love them even more. But more importantly, we were getting a lot of people who were like, I didn't know who this person was before, but now I'll be sure to watch them. Like now I'm interested. And people like verbalizing this or tweeting it, whatever you want to say. Right. And within the first, I didn't have a 24-hour number because I was on a Zoom call, but at the 23-hour mark in the How She Wrestles social media alone, so not including the videos we post on our own social media, just within the How She Wrestles, like Twitter, for example, the ones that I had reshared on our Twitter, we had 25,000 unique views in the first 23 hours. Wow. I didn't do the totals if you include our own social media videos, but I'm guessing it was pretty close to 100,000 unique views in total of all of these, which is significant for a 23-hour mark. And it's just grown from there. We're over 1,000 followers on Instagram now. I think we're like 980 on Twitter. And we've started this kind of weekly topic series. So last week was How She Wrestles with Confidence. And this week is How She Wrestles with Injuries. So it's kind of like giving some structure to it moving forward so that you have a specific topic. And again, the primary goal was like, make people take notice of us, make people know that we have personalities and kind of like see as humans, not just like, oh, the girls are on the mat. It's like, oh, that's so-and-so, that's Jennifer Kett, that's Emma Brunzel, that's Alex Gaudet. Like, I know this about them. So they're invested. They have a point of reference kind of to know us. The other thing we want to do is get younger wrestlers involved. We have a huge problem with visibility in women's wrestling, and we want younger wrestlers to know that they have a voice and that they're seen and that they're just as valid as the boy wrestlers are. And so we want them to get involved as too. So now we've kind of started posting these graphics like, we want to hear your stories. Like, tell us how you wrestle with confidence or injuries or travel or mental health or whatever our topics are going to be in the coming weeks. And getting them to share their stories and then in effect, growing the project as well. But we want them to see, their role models speaking up on these issues and then empower them to talk about what they've struggled with or have succeeded with as a female wrestler. So it's still in its very early stages. I don't know what the long-term is going to be of it because it was just kind of like an idea, like, let's see if this works. And it has. So now it's kind of like, oh, well, now what? Well, let's just keep going with it. So Zoom calls kind of discuss next steps. We're kind of targeting people to make some videos, some bigger name UFC stars that have women's wrestling backgrounds. Those should be coming out pretty soon. It's just been a really cool project, and we've gotten a lot of support on it. And hopefully people are continuing to take notice, and maybe people that were skeptical about women's wrestling before are starting to buy in a little bit more through being able to hear these athletes talk about their experiences. So I'm hoping for good things moving forward, but we'll see what happens.
Yeah, I love it. And it's been fun to see. I watched, I'm starting to kind of dabble in Twitter, whatever. I got like 38 followers right now. So follow me on Twitter. I'm trying. But on Instagram, I see the big squares. Like I see you posting like this week, we're going to tell your injury story, or I see the lady that I put on your thumbnail. Like So I do see your stuff happening through that platform a lot. And now that I'm kind of dabbling, like I posted your thing on Twitter and people shared it and liked it. So I was like, oh, she has a backing. That's pretty cool. Some people get liked, some people don't, I don't know. She's so now talk about the Wrestle Like a Girl initiative. I know you're employed by Wrestle Like a Girl. I don't know if both initiatives are probably going in the right direction. Are they the same, or is it kind of two different paths to the same common goal? Or does that
we have my two jobs in Wrestle Like a Girl?
Yeah, so you do Wrestle Like a Girl, you do How She Wrestles. Are they both I know you put that there's a lot of things going on with Wrestle Like a Girl, what the initiatives are, things like that. But is it two different purposes coming to the same common goal, or are you
Yeah.
kind of both on the same road?
The goal with both projects is just to grow women's wrestling and create more exposure, more opportunities. How She Wrestles, like I said, is mostly just like a get girls wrestling stories out there with the hopes that it'll increase our exposure, increase our coverage, get us fair pay on future pro cards, whatever you want to call them. And Wrestling a Girl is an overall advocacy organization for women's wrestling. We're a nonprofit that's focused on growing women's wrestling at the youth, grassroots, high school, college, international level, all across the board. And under that Wrestling a Girl umbrella, we have quite a few different kind of like it's kind of like different. I'm struggling to use words here. Initiatives, I guess is the right way to put it. We have someone that's focusing on coaching development for female athletes. We have someone that's doing Wrestling a Girl empowerment camps. And my two kind of slices of that pie are collegiate initiatives and state sanctioning. So when I first got hired by them in August of last year, so I'm going on a year pretty soon here. Actually, I'm at 1 year, crazy. I got hired as the Collegiate Initiatives Program Manager with my primary responsibility being the NCAA Emerging Sports Status kind of campaign to become an NCAA emerging sport in Division 1, 2, and 3. So I spent the last year focusing on pushing that vote through, which it did. Division 2 and 3 voted yes back in January, and Division 1 voted yes just last month. So that was a success, but now we still have a long ways to go. We have to become an NCAA championship sport. We have to get to 40 programs, which we will here pretty shortly. And all of that. So that's still ongoing as we move into championship sports status, but I kind of oversee anything collegiate within Wrestling a Girl. We're also putting on kind of like a collegiate combine for women's wrestlers. We're calling it the Women's Collegiate Wrestling Festival, which is happening in 2 weeks, which is an opportunity for girls and college coaches to kind of network, talk about their program, their schools, their financial aid, all that kind of a thing. So I kind of see all of that. And then at the beginning of COVID, like I kind of mentioned before, we kind of started tackling some tasks that were previously on our back burner, one of which was really going all in on the state sanctioning campaign. We were already working on state sanctioning, but it was always kind of like as we had time to do it, whereas we had time now to really go hard on it, and also get people involved within those states themselves that might not have had time previously. A lot of teachers and stuff who weren't working that were also coaches at their high school could really buy into helping out. So we started assembling these task forces within each state, at which point I got hired on as the state sanctioning manager. And we started assembling task forces in states that showed interest in wanting to add women's wrestling that didn't already have it, and kind of working forward from there to start putting legislation forward and creating a proposal, getting an officials liaison, getting an athletic director's liaison, all these, and kind of just like putting pegs in poles to make sure that we are covering all our bases to get that state sanctioning push forward. So we're currently working with New York, Virginia, Ohio, Alabama, Minnesota a little bit, Nebraska, and I think I said Ohio and Alabama already, but those are the ones in New York. So also a lot of work, a lot of Zoom calls, but making a lot of really great progress. With Nebraska, we're actually doing a webinar series these next 3 nights, tonight, Tuesday, Wednesday, and just trying to grow women's wrestling at the high school level. In 2016, we had 6 states sanctioned out of 50. 4 years later, we now have 28 states sanctioned out of 50. So a huge improvement, and it's happening faster and faster. So I definitely take a lot of roles with Wrestling a Girl, but we're doing a lot of good things to help grow women's wrestling. It's been a really cool organization to be a part of.
I think you each have a role, but it all helps the common role, the whole get it sanctioned. And these are all the little people around us to try to get that bubble happening, right? Well, that's awesome. And yeah, I mean, I see it, I hear it, I see it all over. It's awesome. I know down here in Florida, they had a huge push with Lindsay Dahl and her team and a bunch of other people. And it was cool. I think they sanctioned it, but I think it's next year. I think 2021 is the first time they'll be at the state level. As far as NCAA, do you see when women get to that point, is your vision to have women and men at the NCAA championships together, or is it we'll have a men's NCAA championships and we'll have a women's NCAA championships?
I think they'll be separate. And I think it should be separate, honestly. my number one fear is that if they had women held alongside the men, the women would be like a sideshow as opposed to being the main event like they deserve. But more than anything else, it would just be too hard logistically to have those two events together. I don't know if you've ever been to like the NCAA men's Division I tournament, but it is nutty. Like, I mean, it is like 3 full days of wrestling, and trying to pack 2 whole tournaments into that same weekend in the same venue would be very hard.
Yeah, I would like to go. My goal is to go next year. Never been, but everybody tells me, including my kids' coaches, that it's probably one of the greatest events you'd ever watch. It's
the weekend. Yeah. I mean, I've sat in the stands at the Olympics, and to this day, I would tell you up and down that being in the stands at the NCAA championships is the coolest fan experience if you're a wrestling fan, without a doubt.
Yeah, and I think somebody told me the closest to it is the Southern Scuffle. I think they say the Southern Scuffle's pretty fun to go to too. So
not even compared. It's an animal, and it's so fun. And when you leave the venue between sessions, you go out to a restaurant, it's packed with wrestling fans. I mean, you can walk up to any restaurant, any bar, and pick up a conversation with someone like that about wrestling, which to me is like half the fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Like in my daily life, like most of my friends, like even they pretend to care about wrestling because they're friends with me, but at the end of the day, they don't actually care about wrestling. Whereas like you go there and it's like, you can talk to anyone you can talk about that session. You can talk about the world team trials coming up, anything. And like anyone wants to talk to you about it. So it's just like wrestling nerd mode on high. Like it's so much.
You mean wrestlers have friends that don't wrestle?
Right? What a concept. Nuts. Not very many of them, but we do.
Wow. Very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
I'd like to, when we're done here, I'm going to take us off live because I have a question for you, but I want to ask it to you off the air. Cool. Well, obviously keep kicking ass in those initiatives. And I think I said that right?
Yeah.
Those initiatives. But awesome. Yeah. Like I said, I see the little posters. I see the things. And I had Emma Bruntiel on, who I think you saw the video. She's at like the 24 or 25-minute part. She took about 5 or 6 minutes right there where she really went after it. So it was cool. And she's probably one of those younger girls that are jumping in and helping you guys out. I had Alex Lyles on. She was awesome. So I'm trying to get some girls on. So
appreciate it. Sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I got my 10 questions for you. Are you ready?
Hit me. Let's do it.
All right. Dixie Outpost or Bacon Land?
Ooh, Dixie Outpost.
The funk roll or the leg lace?
Funk roll. I shouldn't say that for freestyle, but personally, I like funk rolls better.
Burger Bar or Broad Street Diner?
Burger Bar.
Waist roll or chest lock turn?
Chest lock turn.
Johnny Brusco's or Boomer Shine?
Oh, Boomer Shine by a long shot.
For sure. Head and arm throw or suplex?
Suplex.
La Corona or Casa Mexicana?
Casa.
All right. Love it. Single or double?
Double.
All right. What did I write here? Oh, eat on Moore Street or
I didn't carry the other option. Eats.
Eats on Moore.
Doesn't even matter what it is. It's eats.
Yep. Sorry, Fat. All right. Last one. High crotch or foot sweep?
Foot sweep.
Oh man, that's awesome. This was so much fun.
You hit me with good Bristol questions.
Yeah, I was trying to find. What I did was I went to Bristol. I pulled up your college, and then I kind of tried to look around. And I don't know. It's the way I do it. Is I'll go, okay, hamburger joint. I'll look for a hamburger joint or pizza joint, and then I found some cool spots. And then of course you're a freestyle wrestler, so I was like, well, shit, let me hit them with the freestyle. I'm trying to like blend in some wrestling into my questions because people were asking. But
if you're ever in Bristol, you got to go to Eats. That's my favorite restaurants in town. Just like really, really good, like Southern soul food. Like awesome collard greens, mac and cheese, best cornbread you'll have anywhere. It's so good.
Oh, all right. I'm leaving right now. I'll be there. How long does it take? I love it. Hey, well, first of all, thank you so much for coming on. It was
thanks for having me.
It's an absolute honor to have you. just super dope. I'm going to click the stop live stream just because I have a question.
Cool.
And all right, Word Wrestling Live. Bye, Julie Salata.
Thanks for having me.